Now, when I was a wee kid, I used to love creepypastas, right? Short, campy, usually very badly written horror stories about popular media, it's stuff like the lost episodes of SpongeBob, where Squidward would have blood red eyes, and that's it, you're supposed to be scared of this. And of course, the regular show, where like Rigby would murder Mordecai in cold blood before we see a shot of his dismembered body. And don't forget the scene where Rigby ties the noose before. No, listen, bro, this is a pig ignorant, downright moronic shit, right? But as a kid, man, this for me was what crack was to minorities in the 1980s. Like, I'd stay up all night browsing the no sleep subreddit. Hell, I still do this, all right? I don't know what it is about campy horror stories, because look, I laugh at them in the day, but reading the stories at midnight before going to bed, look, I get paranoid as all hell, all right? Like, I feel like there's something in the room. My lights are usually off, so that doesn't help. Basically get a kick of like a, adrenaline surge or some shit. But, it wasn't long before I acquired the mental illness that is being a COD Zombies fan. And so naturally I started looking up Call of Duty creepypastas. Now listen, I will die on the fucking hill that there are some extremely good ideas in some of these stories, right? But I would be lying if I said the story is usually anything more than laughable as a whole. But I naturally wondered if there was anything I had seen as a kid that actually stood test of time, and it's just generally well written from top to bottom. I'm gonna be showing you some of the shit that I remember really loving, and we'll see if any of this shit stood the test of time, you know what I mean?
What you know about?
I looked this shit up, bro, and the first thing I see is COD Black Hell Ops. And you click on it. Look, creepypasta writers back in the day had a huge hard-on for two things in particular, alright? Bootleg copies of famous games, a la the haunted Majora's Mask cartridge, and dumbass statements like, "You will die," but written in some language that is seen as scary. You can't just open up Google Translate and pick something like French or Spanish, that would be too mellow. You gotta pick some real shit, like... What even is this, bro? Actually, this is perfect, actually. So ladies and gentlemen, you're gonna be seeing something like this in one of these creepypastas. Now, the story begins in mid-2010, all right? The new Black Ops was just announced, and the narrator, being a huge MW2 fan, no, not that one, get that shit out of here, was of course naturally aroused by the prospect of getting to see something of it, or even to play it early. And listen, I did the same shit back in the day, bro. I'd be looking up leaked menus and gameplay of Black Ops 3 months before the release, and I'd find some shit like this, courtesy of Lizard Squad or some other fuck-ass group like Anonymous. But this guy was more innovative than that, alright? Instead of going on YouTube, he went on Craigslist. Actually, I take that back, bro. There are like 67 creepypastas that start on Craigslist, alright? But look, this guy, he actually finds someone.
I found a man named Bootleg Bill. This Bootleg Bill was actually an 18-year-old high school dropout. I contacted him through the email asking if he has a copy. He replied to my email saying, "I do have a copy, come to my house on 7110 East 6th Avenue.
Now listen, bro, if no one got my back, I just know that the 18-year-old high school dropout Bootleg Bill got my back, alright? Like, he goes over to this fuck-ass address, and the most unrealistic thing in the story happens. He does not, in fact, get jumped by a crackhead at the house. Instead, the 18-year-old high school dropout Bootleg Bill, as advertised, actually comes out and says, "I've been waiting." Okay, that's something a crackhead would actually say. Maybe this is a bit realistic. But Bootleg Bill ends up trying to give this game away for free. Like, listen, in Obama's economy? Look, that shit ain't happening, alright? But look, listen, the narrator self-glazes a bit, autofellatio, calling his own ass generous before giving Bootleg Bill $80, thereby making it even more unrealistic. No one's doing that, alright? He goes home, and only then does he notice, hold up, man, this disc has cod.exe written on it. Ain't no H in Black Ops, alright? But he puts that shit in his PlayStation 3 like any other fucking narrator, and instead of finding out that cod.exe actually stood for the name of an obscure softcore 80s porno titled Cougars of Desire, Beach House Orgy, he instead finds it to stand for Call of Duty Black Hell Ops, after being met with the game's main menu title card. Look, I have to be honest, I did not see this coming. right? Like, but the guy ends up being just like me, you know, he hates anything that isn't zombies. He goes right into the zombies mode.
It had Kino der Toten and one that I've never heard before called Ad. I was baffled once again over the map's name, and I would expect it to have a better name too. Anyway, I decided to play Ad. The map looked like in what it seemed to be Russia. The map seemed too big to...
Now listen, let me show you something, bro. Like, you go to a Google Translator, right? Pick Russian, and you type in ad. You click the Cyrillic version of it, and there you go. You know what I mean? It's like, look, this guy had one idea. One! But, you know, to put myself in his shoes, let's reverse it, alright? You probably put in, like, hell in English, translated it to some commie language, saw this little English pronunciation right here at the bottom, ad. It's like, hey, this shit, ad is so tough, bro. But you know, you click on the speaker icon.
At.
You'd realize it's not even ad, it's...
At.
For this guy, like...
The map seemed too big to be a normal zombie map. I ignored this, however, and played it.
Does he know?
Then the freakiest thing happened. It seems that hands started sticking out of the ground. When I saw this, I thought that it was just a glitch. With the disc being stolen, I thought that it was some kind of beta
I don't know
version of
what's
the
so
game.
like surprising or like freaky about this. This is literally just garage trivia, right? Like,
After this event, I noticed something. Ad is Russian for hell.
how did you come to this revelation? Like, all of a sudden you typed in ad in Google Translate mid-game, like when you were being freaked off by Diddy or whatever the fuck is haunting this did. Bro, like, shut the fuck up.
An eerie banjo melody is playing in the background. The Russian town map is soon replaced by a town in what seems to be like Hiroshima, after it was struck with a nuclear bomb. Dead bodies are everywhere. Some are children's bodies and some are adults' bodies. In my head, I was thinking, how could the developers be so insensitive? I'm starting to think that this isn't even a beta copy, it's just a disc.
Listen, dude, listen. Setting aside the not so subtle racism here and there, like, there are some actually cool ideas here, right? Like, imagine you're playing a map and then it's just randomly teleports you into a hyper-realistic scene like the aftermath of Hiroshima, you know, fucking Oppenheimer shit. It's insensitive, yeah, sure, but I think they're a bit past that now that they made an entire franchise out of the idea that the soldiers who died in World War II, they come back as zombies.
I'm starting to think that this isn't even a beta copy, it's just a disc modded by a sick-minded person. In pure anger, I emailed Bootman Bill. I waited 3 days and I
Bootman Bill, bro. I thought this guy's name was Bootleg Bill. See, this is the horror right here, bro. The longer you play this modded copy, the more your perception of reality changes. It's like Silent Hill 2, you know?
In the game, hanging from the remains of what seemed to be a destroyed house was a wooden sign that read, Dono yo ni sore wa jaku dizaku dearu koga ga kanji rara masu ka, which translates to, how does it feel to be in hell, Zach?
It's not even the correct pronunciation, by the way. Like,
I continue the game. This time the music has changed. This time it's a Japanese choir singing Where wa shende airu sakeshi ante ma desu, over and over again. This translates into, we are dead, but you are too.
okay, honestly, look, listen, this is actually tough. Alright, like, besides his pronunciation, this is actually tough, alright? Like, there are little moments in these stupid-ass stories that are actually kind of unsettling, right? Like, imagine you open up these old zombies games, right? But there would be a 1 in 1,000 chance of the main menu becoming all haunted and shit if you open it after hours. With, like, some children singing a lullaby in Japanese or whatever the hell. Like, it's corny, right? But also, it would have probably been crazy to experience back in the day at midnight or some shit, you know?
At this time, it's 4:30 p.m., so I have time to walk around and forget about this. I tell my mom about this, but she would freak if she knew I spent $80 on a bootleg copy. I'll continue playing.
Alright, listen, this is basically the end of the story. I'm gonna spare you the last 5 seconds. This is basically the end. And this is probably the most realistic place to stop. Not some haunted voodoo demon in some disc, but just your mom pulling out the belt after she finds out that you spent $80 on a bootleg copy of some fuck-ass game. Now, honestly, this is a shitty-ass story, alright? Like, a lot of these writers back then, they kind of knew that. It sort of became this kind of like in-joke, where it was less a creepypasta and more a crappy pasta. And one of my favorite creepypastas is, of course, Call of Duty World at War Beta Disc.
So recently, after playing Call of Duty 5, I noticed that I had no dirt whatsoever on that game.
What?
So I looked up the beta and quickly fell in love with it. I have connections with gaming stuff, my best friend being a game collector and my brother owning a game shop. I never actually thought about playing a beta game before until I heard my friend got a copy of the Call of Duty 5 beta. No way, this can't be possible, I thought to myself. What are the odds that he could have gotten the unreleased ideas for the original Call of Duty?
It's not a big thing. Like, listen, there are lots of leaked, like, beta copies, alpha copies even, of, like, these Call of Duty games. Like, Black Ops 2, bro, they had fucking, like, Diddy and that shit.
I called him right away and he said that he would give it to me for free!
Free!
I said thanks and took the game, and for some reason written on the disc was Undeal! I had no idea what it meant at the time, and I didn't care. I said thanks to him, and he said, anytime, Carter. And then in parentheses, Carter is my name.
I was surprised he kept calling me Carter. My name was Jeremy. It would have been really awkward for me to correct him.
I sprinted home and popped the beta into my... I waited for it to load, and that Japanese text came up again. I went straight to the campaign, and instead of saying new campaign, it said Red Rum Nodge. Oh, John Murder, of course.
See, bro,
I clicked it.
This is already way more creative than any of the shit I fucking covered so far in this series, bro. Hey, honestly, Hong Kong, bro.
And there was no cutscene. It just went straight to the level. The part where they slit the private's throat was not there. Nobody was in the room. I was able to go outside. The Marines were nowhere to be found. I could not find anybody or anything. So many short sentences. Then I noticed a cave. Maybe the fight was happening in the cave and the beta disc had some changes. The cave was nearby, so I walked towards it. I could hear a gurgled cry, and I was getting kind of scared. Maybe this was a glitch. I walked inside the cave.
It's always a glitch, isn't it?
And it was pitch black on the other side. I walked towards the darkness and I saw a dead body. It resembled Hitler. I thought this was weird.
Yeah, don't say. I thought this was normal.
Since Hitler was never in-game, and especially in Japan. Hitler was only on one cutscene.
Hitler!
I fell into the floor and went into third-person view. My face was melting. Why was Miller melting? He had blood surrounding him and he fell dead. The Japanese text came up again. Now was my chance to translate. I was now all too curious what the text in the background meant, so I used Translator on my phone. And my heart skipped a beat when it translated to, "You deserve a death!"
I told you, bro. I told you, but they went into Google Translate. They probably fucking picked some shit like fucking, bro. They probably put the Malakatsu, bro, and they fucking like, you will die. Oh, fuck, yeah, I know.